Like 2015. So this is how it happened. I did a podcast called Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole, and we looked into all sorts of conspiracies, things that deceptions in this world, and there's plenty. And then people started sending me, "Hey Dave, have you looked into flat Earth?" And you get that. It's like delete. That's a joke. Flat Earth, dumbest thing ever. And they kept coming. They kept coming and coming and coming to the point where I started banning people from our social media for being so stupid to even ask such a question. And then I was forced to look into it because another researcher said, "Dave, I think the Earth is flat." And I'm like, "Nah, you too." And she goes, "Here, watch this." And she sent me over Mark Sargent's clues. I don't know, you might have heard the name Mark Sargent if you looked into flat Earth at all. Don't believe me. Just go, I never looked behind that door. Now I got to go verify that. So Mark Sargent, I got the Mark Sargent clues. Basically, same thing happened to him. So he made a series of short videos going, "Hey, this is really weird. How does this work on a globe?" And he put out these short videos expecting some PhD, some scientist to get back to him and go, "This is how it works, dummy." But no one ever got back. And then the whole thing started going. So that I tried to disprove flat Earth. I tried to prove the globe and disprove flat Earth. And that's how you become a flat earther. Every culture before this time was a flat Earth culture, except when the religious cult of NASA came in. And Carl Sagan brainwashed us with it, that the only way that he could be here in Said, where he had no shadow because the sun was directly over him, and his buddy 500 miles away had a shadow. And then they did some calculus, perfectly good math, and figured out the circumference of this ball, right? And the math is perfect. The problem is they're assuming that the rays of sun are coming in parallel when that's not how they come. And on a flat Earth, the sun is small and close. And he could be right here, his buddy 500 miles away. You can take these angles, do the same math, and figure out the sphericity of this flat line. So the sun is small and it's close and it's circling over the flat Earth. So then the next question you're going to have is, where does nighttime come from? So if this is the flat Earth, the sun, here's the sun, and it's circling around. It's small and it's close. Don't ask me how big it is or what it is. We'll get into that. When you think of flat Earth, when you Google if you Google flat Earth, you're not doing research. You're doing unresearch. You're doing what the mainstream wants you to do. You Google flat Earth, you're going to come up with pictures like this. These images are from the Flat Earth Society. You may have heard that because Obama mentioned it a half a dozen times in speeches. No flat earther believes that we're a disc floating in space. That's insanity. If the flat Earth isn't a disc floating in space, what is it? So the way I look at it is the Earth is like a pond. Right? What is a pond? A pond is where water accumulates in the low spot in the land. Going back before, this is Aristophanes had to assume all of these rays are coming in parallel. No one's ever seen parallel rays coming in. They're always coming in at an angle. And if you connect those, where's the sun? It's kind of right above the clouds. So we'll get into that in a little bit. But so a pond is, where is the low spot, the shoreline of the pond is where the water, where the land is higher than the water. I'm looking for a picture while I talk, and of course it's missing. So a lake is just a bigger pond. And if you think about the world oceans, here we go. The world's oceans are just a giant lake. The shoreline of the lake is Antarctica. All of the continents, islands, whatever, are surrounded by water, but the water is surrounded by land. Antarctica is the highest land on Earth. Large bodies of water at rest lay flat. Scientifically, testably, provably flat. There is no curvature. Large bodies of water. We have sea level. We don't have sea curve. We can see things that are too far away. For example, they tell us the ball is 24,901 miles around. That's what they tell us. So if we use their math, at just 10 miles, there should be 66 feet of curvature. Just at 10 miles, according to their math. That's crazy. So we can go out and get our super zoom cameras and set them up on a tripod next to the edge of the water. Here's an example. 9.4 miles away, the camera's 1 foot off the ground. There should be 59 feet of curvature. But not only can we see the rig, we can see the water for dozens of miles beyond it, right? This is just one that I can illustrate here. So look out here. Is there a boat out here? I'm zooming in. There's no boat, but there actually is a boat. You just can't see it because it's too small. So I'm going to zoom all the way in on this boat and watch the side of the boat. It's going to disappear from the bottom up. And that's due to angular resolution limits of your eyes. Look, the hull is gone. It's up to the window. And then the whole thing disappears. It's not over the curve. It's just beyond your ability to see, because it's the way the angular resolution limits of our eyes work. So if you were standing right here,
Yeah.
and I walked around that hallway and I gave you a telescope, any telescope you wanted, give you the Hubble telescope, could you zoom in and see me again? Demonstrating a curve. So if I flip that hallway sideways, this will be the curve of the Earth. If I was on the other side of that, you can't zoom in because there's a physical horizon here. You look at this image here, we're zooming in and bringing things back into view. That proves that it's an optical. Air gets actually kind of thick, and then you can't see. So here's a famous spot. This is in Aluja, France, and it's a famous sightseeing spot because out here is Mount Canigou, 175 miles away. Well, from this viewing height and that distance, the peak, the highest peak of Mount Canigou should be a mile below the physical curve. If this was a physical curve, this is just what's called the vanishing point. And the light that's bouncing off of the mountain is not bright enough to push through the soup of the air, because light doesn't go forever. They have us believing light travels for billions of years. Nonsense. Okay. But on 2 days a year, when the sun lines up with these mountains, as it goes by, it backlights the mountains, and all of a sudden you can see them. And right there where the mouse is, that should be a mile below the curvature, according to GlobeMath. So you have two options here. One, the Earth is 1,000 times bigger than they tell us, or it's flat. Third option would be refraction, but the problem with refraction is, how does a mirage block the sun? Doesn't happen. So you have the sun and the moon are circling in the sky above us, and they're in what we call the firmament. So here is this line is the Tropic of Cancer, and this is the Tropic of Capricorn, the outer line. Sun circles. Now, this isn't to scale or to speed, but the sun travels in between these tropics every 6 months, and the moon travels in between the tropics every 28 days. And when they hit a nodal point at the same time, they cross each other, and that's when an eclipse happens. Okay? Eclipses repeat every 18 years and whatever number of days, but they repeat. They're on a repeating cycle, like a fine watch repeats. No, there's a series of eclipses that happen, and 18 years from now, the same series of eclipses will happen again and again for eternity. If you believe we're in a beehive, crazy orbiting, we're traveling trillions of miles a year. This is the heliocentric model. We're spinning at 1,000 miles an hour, orbiting at 66,000 miles an hour, chasing the sun at over 500,000 miles an hour. And let me share my app with you. The app is the best way to see it. So the inner line is the Tropic of Cancer, and I'll explain that in a minute. The outer line is the Tropic of Capricorn, and the red line is the equator. This red line is 24,901 miles around. So the sun, right now the sun is supposed to be pinned to the hour hand, but we're in daylight savings time. So the sun is really what time it is. They tell us it's an hour later than it. Right now, it's showing it that it's almost it's almost 50-50. But if I jump the sun in 2 months to June, you can see that the day and night kind of wraps around a little bit more, right? June 21st is the summer solstice, and that's the closest the sun gets to us. And when it's close, it's high in the sky, and we have these longer days. So right now, it's coming right now. It's dawn on the East Coast, and the sun's coming around. And when the sun's over here where my mouse is, it'll be noon for the East Coast. And it'll be really hot in Florida, in Miami, because the sun is directly over them. They're right under the Tropic of Cancer. A little cooler up in Connecticut, where I am, cooler in Canada, because they're farther away. Australia is having their winter at the same time, because the sun never gets close to them. I'll jump the sun forward to December, and now we're having our winter. And Australia is having their summer because the sun is directly over them. Our sun is farther away south, so it's lower in the sky, and we're having shorter days.
But what about places that go with full daylight for months? What about spots in Antarctica or in Alaska? How does this account for that?
So good questions. Very good. Let me jump it back to the inner. So it's back over the Tropic of Cancer, and it's all has to do with how far the sun is from you, to make it set. So here in Alaska and in Norway, these inner places in the Arctic, the sun never gets far enough away. Like if you're standing right here in Alaska, the sun's still up in the air. It's still up in the air. Following my mouse, it's kind of far away, but it's still up in the air. And you have your 24-hour sun in June. Like if I speed it up, watch. The sun will lap the moon once every 28 days. So the sun keeps track of the hours and the days, and the moon and its phases and its position keep track of the weeks. And they used to be called moons. There used to be 13 moons of 28 days, and then they changed it to 12 months of random days just to literally throw our body clocks off. So right now it's gaining distance on the moon, and the moon is waxing. And every 28 days, it will lap the moon. This is the closest map that we have because it's way better than the globe. It's used for navigation, and it shows you. I'll get into that in a second, showing you that plane routes prove that this map is the most accurate map that we have. Here are the zodiacs, and the zodiac stars never change. You go out tonight, mark where the stars are in the sky at whatever time. A year later, same time, same night, go out. The stars will be in the exact same position. Right now. Let me turn that off. Right now, the sun is in whatever tropic this is. Where's the sun? Here. And the zodiac laps the sun, not like it laps the sun once a year. So it's moving, it's just going slightly faster. So right now the sun is moving into this zodiac. It'll inch across the zodiac for about a month, and then it goes into the next one for a month, and then it'll follow the next one, Cancer, for a month. And if I jump forward to June, we'll go July, and look, the sun is in the Tropic of Cancer. Well, think about this. We're both in a room, and we're looking up at the ceiling, and there's lights in the ceiling. Now we expand that room to 10 miles wide.
Okay.
Make it big as a city.
Yeah.
And I send you 5 miles away from me, 10 miles away from me. Well, when you look up, you're looking at different stars, and I can't even see you because the ceiling and the floor have merged together, and I can't see you unless I had a telescope and I could zoom in and make you bigger. But when we look up, we're looking at completely different stars. Yeah. The lights in the ceiling are completely different in the outer southern hemiplane and the inner northern hemiplane. The stars rotate around once a day. So when it's midnight in Australia, you're looking at the stars, and then 12 hours later, those same stars are over Santiago. Stars are circling around, just like just like you can see here. They're spinning around with the sun. So wherever the sun is, you can't see the stars. So right now, like Cancer is over Santiago, right? 12 hours later, Cancer will be over Australia. Because they're spinning around. Everything in the sky that we see spins around above us like a perfect clock. We're not moving at all, right? The time zones turn around with the sun. Wherever the sun is, it's noon. So right now as we speak, it's 2 a.m. in Eastern Australia. It's 6 p.m. in Central Africa. They tell us that 40,000 years ago, we had a different star. Yeah. And in 40,000 years from now, we'll have another star. But we just happen to live in the time where the star is always in the exact same place. That, we're just in this time where Polaris has never moved. And the amount that they say it's moving in the last 70 years, it should have moved at least a degree. And it hasn't. It hasn't at all. So just remember all of these motions. We're traveling trillions of miles through that hole. It was built over 40 years ago. The North Star is through that hole. Time lapse, all the stars to go around it. How is that possible if we're spinning, twirling, and whirling and cruising in 4 different directions at once, and all the other stars in the galaxy are moving at their own directions, orbiting the sun? We're 186 million miles on the other side of the sun in every 6 months. Once you actually think about it, and then the distance of those, we'll go over that in a second. But as far as you were talking about how long of a flight it would be. It's a major city. Lots of people want to go to Perth, another major city.
Yeah.
This is the fastest route on the globe. But the Antarctic Treaty says we can't fly any planes over Antarctica because we could disturb the penguin. Around it like this, right? Boom. Or around this way. That would be the shortest way. But this is the actual route that they go. They go from here, they stop in Miami or Houston, then they stop in LA, then they stop in Sydney, and then they go over to Perth. Or sometimes they go all the way up to Europe, to Singapore, and to Perth. These are the actual flight route. These are the routes. They tell you that it's going, like this one right here from Australia, from Perth to Los Angeles. This is where they would tell you. And NASA is in charge of all flight routes. It's all a deception. NASA is only here to get to your question of why are they lying. It's all about the lie. So right out here is Hawaii, and there was let me find the right image. There was an emergency where one of the passengers was having a heart attack or something was going on, and they needed to land the plane immediately. Okay. And the logical place to land it, here we go. So right out here, the logical place would be land in Hawaii or continue to LA, but they were right here. They went all the way up to Alaska and landed up there. Why would they do that? And the answer is Taiwan, emergency, Alaska. That's the closest spot. Well, they went to Alaska because look at the flight route. The emergency happened right here. Here you go. This is how you do it. This book is free online, PDF, or if you want to order it from lulu.com, it's an awesome coffee table book. 16 different emergency landings that make 0 sense on a globe and make perfect sense on a flat earth. So when you look up in the sky and see Mars, it's like the brightest star in the sky. On Mars, this dusty, dirty ball is able to reflect sunlight back so bright that 25 million miles away, it looks brighter than a star. I'm sorry, that doesn't work. If you like math, look at the inverse square law of light. Every time you double the distance to something, it gets a quarter of the brightness. Light that we're seeing, like when we see Mars, we're seeing the sunlight that's reflecting off of it. That's what they tell us. Brighter than the stars. You can actually measure it with it's brighter than the stars. How is this thing reflecting light as bright as a star? Next time you go look at Mars, look at it. It's bright. It's brighter. It's bigger and brighter than all of the other stars. How is this thing reflecting light? And look, this is a picture from NASA from the rover, and this is a picture from Greenland. Do you see a problem? Same photo, and this is from NASA.
Really?
This is from NASA. This is a NASA photo off of their website. They say the water bulges 14 miles high. Well, how come Africa is not underwater if that's the case? Right? We're spinning, whirling, twirling in 4 different directions at once. The equator bulges 14 miles high, which is like, if you're in an airplane, you only fly about 5 miles high. At what point do you climb an extra 10 miles just to skim over a hump of water? And the answer is never. That the water bulges 14 miles high. So, if it's bulging, that's a bulge. That's not the perfect cue ball globe. How do we have lakes that are perfect mirrors? How is that possible on a spinning, whirling, and twirling world? We're accelerating. Curvature is accelerating. When you when you make a turn, like get a dinner plate, fill it with water, go in a car, get on a perfectly straight, flat road and go 100 miles an hour, just 100. Fill the dinner plate with water and then try to take a turn. Okay? What's going to happen to that water? It's all gone. It's all going to come right out of the plate. The slightest turn whatsoever. And we're swirling, whirling, and swirling in directions that at speeds you can't even imagine. And we have lakes that look like this. Makes 0 sense. The closest star is the closest one. Okay. 25 trillion miles away. So if this was the sun, the heliocentric sun, gigantic, and it was a mile overhead, we'd look up, this is all we'd see. We'd see the entire sun filling the entire sky horizon. Then if we move the sun, like if this was the sun in the sky, right? It's filling the entire sky because it's really close. And then we move it away, it gets smaller because of perspective, right? Okay. The size of a coin held at arm's length.
Okay.
Right? You hold up a coin, okay? So it reduced from the entire sky to the size of a coin. If I doubled the distance, scientifically we can prove that its angular size would be too small to see. At just double the distance. 8 times farther is a light hour. And the closest star is 4.5 light years away, and the other ones are magnitudes farther. Proved at double the distance of the sun, we couldn't see it. And the entire sky to a tiny little circle. And if we went 8 times farther, you can do the math and you would see that its angular size is far below what your human eye could see. The eye has a resolution limit of 0.02 arc degrees, and you couldn't see it. That's a light hour. The next star is 40,000 times. Proves that the stars that we see are not these giant gas balls burning in a vacuum. You know what? Again, anything above our heads is out of limits. You know, I don't even think NASA knows what they are. Here's a map that was found, a Japanese map. It was in New York, the New York Journal, which is now the New York Times, showing like 50 other continents outside of Antarctica. We don't know what's out there because it's off limits. Think about this. They had in 1946, they discovered, the ice barrier in Antarctica, and that was interesting. And then in 1955, they had Operation Deep Freeze, where they discovered the firmament. In the Encyclopedia Americana of 1958 edition under Antarctica, it says that 80 degrees south, the dome cover is at 13,000 feet. What is it? Is it physical? Is it energetic? I don't know, but there's lots of information about that. Firmament page, I'm not a religious person, but page 1 of the Bible talks about God separated the waters from the waters and created the firmament. Then they created NASA to hide the dome. Then they had the Antarctic Treaty, where all countries were out there killing each other. So in 1959, all the countries, Russia, United States, China, everyone signed on saying nobody can explore Antarctica, even though Admiral Byrd said there's land bigger than the United States, filled with resources that no one has ever set eyes upon beyond the pole. How do you go beyond the pole? And to this day, since 1959, it's still in effect. It's still in effect till the year 2041, and it can't even be questioned until then. Okay, why did everybody agree? Why is this the only treaty that has held up the test of time? At Operation Fishbowl, where they started blowing bombs up in the sky, trying to blow a hole in the dome. And then they had the Apollo missions to hide the entire thing, to hide the dome, to make you believe you live on a ball. All of this division by countries is made up. It's all made up. There was no one died in the Cold War. Nobody. Just the military-industrial complex got bigger, right? These are fake. These are all staged bankers' wars, right? They know that they can't kill people. They're not allowed. They know the karmic impact of that. So they convince order followers to kill other order followers. If you signed up for the army and there was a war, they'd send you over there to go kill other people that signed up.
Right.
And why are you killing that person? You have no idea why. Because you were told to. The only true forces of this world are electricity and magnetism, and they're brother and sister. They go together, electricity and magnetism. And the world is set up like a giant battery, where the salt water carries the current, the sun and the moon are the cathode and anode, and the land is the salt bridge of the battery. There's free energy. The earth that does not move has a measurable, testable, provable negative charge to it. And when you lift up off of the earth, there's voltage in the air. There's at a 1 meter, there's 100 volts, and at 2 meters, there's 200 volts, and it goes up from there. We are electrical beings. We're grounded to the earth. But when anything lifts up off of the floor, it has a positive charge to it, and the earth will attract it. The negative charge to it will attract it down. It says down is down for everybody. Up is up for everybody. Left and right, forward and backwards all depend on which direction you're facing. But down is down for me. Down is down for somebody in Australia. Because people believe if you're in Australia, from my point of view, cruise ships and oceans and people are all upside down. From my point is,
yeah,
I have to believe that right now, according to where I'm standing, there's a cruise ship upside down in Australia. But here's a tinfoil triangle. You can just look this up. You put a negative charge on it and it lifts up off the ground. It's not defying electricity. Its negative charge becomes stronger than the Earth's and it goes up. Okay. Buoyancy and density sort everything else out. If I had a handful of marbles and ping pong balls and held them over in the air over a swimming pool, I drop them. They both fall through the air because they're more dense. The ping pong balls would float on top of the water. The marbles would go to the bottom because the earth is attracting them.
Right.
But then the water is more dense than the ping pong balls. So the ping pong balls will stay on the top. And the rocks are more dense than the water. So they'll go to the bottom. Buoyancy and density sort everything else out. and the Earth has a negative charge. 9.8 meters per second is, if that's correct, then that's what the negative charge of the Earth creates. 9.8 meters per second. There's no proof that mass attracts mass. If that was true when you're standing next to Mount Everest and you hold a plumb line, it should be a little crooked, but it's not. There's no amount of mass that attracts anything. And then there's a problem. It's called the three-body problem. So you know, to believe in the heliocentric model, you have to believe the Earth is falling around the sun. So we have the sun and the Earth is going around it. Moon goes in between the sun. How come the sun doesn't grab onto the moon and pull it away? How come when the moon is coming around the Earth towards the sun, it doesn't speed up and then slow down a little bit? How come the sun's gravity ignores all of the moons and only holds on to the planets? How come when we have planetary alignments, all shit doesn't get fucked up? And let me tell you about the three-body problem.
Yeah.
You can take the world's best supercomputer and you put a mass. You say, all right, here's the sun. It's got this mass, it's this size, and it's got this much gravity. And then I got a little planet. I'm going to put it in there. I'm going to set them in orbit. And the computer will render that all day long. You can figure out exactly where it's going to be. It'll work perfectly forever, right? And they can do this. Then in that computer program, you add one more body, either a moon or another planet orbiting either one of those bodies. And the entire thing goes into chaos mode and never repeats. You talk about buoyancy and density. Look at this thing. This is 40,000 pounds of steel falling from the sky. It's supposed to burn up before it gets to those clouds. But in reality, this is a helium balloon. This is filled with helium. It's not steel. They want you to believe this is the external tank from the space shuttle. But why isn't it falling? Why is it floating? See a little piece of paper flew by it? That's probably from one of the helicopters, dropped a handkerchief or something. This isn't falling. This is, you know, gravity doesn't. I actually jumped forward. This is from the space shuttle. And the space shuttle it's all a ruse. No man has ever been on a rocket to go into space. Yeah, some evil Knievel shit, you know, going maybe 1,800 feet in the air, but that's it. All those rockets, they're not manned spacecraft. So if you look into the Bible, there's over 200 verses in the Bible speaking of a flat, non-moving earth. The Bible literally is a flat earth book from page 1. But the people that have taken over this world, which happened, I believe, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, hate the creator. They don't want people knowing who they are. They want you to believe that you're spinning out of control on a tiny speck with trillions of other specks in a godless or distant god, infinitely expanding universe where an asteroid could take you out at any time, where you have no control over anything. You're spinning out of control, lost in space. Versus the truth of the matter is that you are very special, that you are at the center of creation, that you are a powerful spiritual being, that nobody has dominion over you, that your thoughts create your reality and nobody can break your free will unless you, when the sun moves out towards the dome, the light wraps around farther. And when it moves in towards the Tropic of Cancer, when it moves in here, the sun becomes more of a circular light. In Africa, certain latitudes in South America, when the sun sets, 5 minutes later, it's pitch black. And that's because the sun is going faster. It's moving faster. But why don't we see it move faster through the sky? And the answer is, I'll show you a quick video. So this is what we call the personal atmospheric dome. The way we see is we're like each person standing in the middle of this dome, and this is how we see the sun. So this point right here is where we see the sun. So right now, you know, it's nighttime over here, but the sun is still here. And now it's coming back. I'm going to stop the sun right in the middle. So it's noon here, right? It's a little afternoon here. It's late afternoon here. And this is where you see the sun. It's called your personal atmospheric dome. And it's a lot to understand. I just have it on top of a white rug, and I'm moving a light across it. So the real sun is above the dome, and inside the dome, this is what I see. Always perspective. It's the atmospheric density that makes it set for me, right? It's like when you're watching the sun go away, it's just going away. It looks like it's setting behind this cloud, but it's just going beyond it. But the next, you know, at 20, 30 miles away, the clouds merge with the horizon and the sun just goes beyond it. It just goes beyond it. But on the high plains of Africa, this shows you this is sped up. The sun's not going down. It's just going away. If the moon is a sphere, it kind of looks like a sphere, but we can't prove it's a sphere. For example, is that a sphere? Well, it's a half a sphere. Is this one a sphere before she grabs it? Is that a sphere? Flat. Okay. What I'm showing you is that it's not fair to look up and say, well, that looks like a sphere, so therefore the Earth is a sphere, right? You can't triangulate the moon. If two people try to triangulate the sun or the moon and add a third person, which should make it better, everyone's seeing it in a different position. It's kind of like if you and I were standing outside 50 yards apart and there's a giant mirror, upright mirror, and the sun was setting behind us and we're looking at the mirror and the third person went up to the mirror and they said, I see the sun right there. And they drew a circle around the sun where I see it. They're going to draw a circle 50 yards over, and the moon's the biggest mystery of all. Okay. Nobody knows. I don't even think the people in NASA know. And we have pilots that fly from long distance, one from California to Germany. And we had a pilot on from KLM who told us, how the gyros work, how the plane never noses down, and they don't have to worry about curvature or spin, and they see the sun and the moon, and they don't set, and it's, how it's impossible. Next day, by the way, she was grounded and then fired. A plane flying at, 550 miles an hour, whatever speed, that's the average speed of an airplane, would have to account for curvature, because over the course of an hour, you'd be 30,000 feet higher. Okay, not 30,000 feet, 30 miles high. And gyroscopes hold rigidity in space. The pilot fires up his gyroscope on the runway, and so then the plane's going. When the plane turns, the gyroscope stays level, so he knows to go back to level. And when he goes up, the gyroscope he needs to go back down. And the gyroscope holds rigidity in space. A gyroscope would send you all right off into space. Anyway, gyroscopes ignore gravity. They hold rigidity in space. No matter which way you turn, the gyroscope on its 3-axis gimbal will hold its rigidity. So you would have to mile down a mile, on average every 2 minutes. Again, you gotta look into it. There's many pilots that have spoken out saying they know the Earth is flat and doesn't spin. Think about this. If you're on the Earth at the equator, you're spinning 1,000 miles an hour because it's 24,000 miles around, 24 hours, 1,000 miles an hour. But if you're all the way up at the North Pole, just like a mile from the North Pole, your little circle around that North Pole is only 3.14 miles every 24 hours. So you're going like 1/8 of a mile an hour. You're not even going 1 mile an hour up there. The angular speed is the same. You go 360 degrees every 24 hours. But if you're a mile from the North Pole, you travel 3.14 miles in 24 hours. If you're on a runway in Ecuador, you're traveling 24,000 miles. You're going 1,000 miles per hour. Okay, if the airplane took off from the North Pole and tried to land on a north-south runway that's moving sideways at 1,000 miles per hour, where's that airplane going to get that extra 1,000 miles an hour of speed to land? Do your senses tell you you're moving? Because you've traded in your senses for nonsense. Different experiments to prove that the Earth is spinning, and they all failed. And they proved that the Earth is stationary and that the ether is spinning above us. Want us to know our true power, because if you wake up and realize that no one has dominion over you, they lose power. What if you found out that you are a free, sovereign human being and that you didn't have to obey anything they say, and that there's more? There's more. There's no shortage of food. There's no shape of the earth that matters. It's a lie. They don't want you knowing who you are. They don't want you knowing your true power. They don't want you knowing that your thoughts create your reality. Your thoughts, everything you have in your life is because of the way you think. Everything you have in your life is you thought it into existence. You brought it into existence with your thoughts. Okay. And there's people that live paycheck to paycheck their whole lives. There's people that make millions of dollars and then they lose millions of dollars and they're millions of dollars in debt and then they make millions of dollars again. That's just because of the way that they operate. There's people that, everything in your life is because of the way that you think. You are your only enemy, and nobody can take your God-given free will away. Nobody can take it away unless you willingly give it to them. And they constantly put us into fear. And when you're in fear, you can't get that power. You can't use it, and you willingly give it away. Verse in the Bible that basically says, if once you see my creation, which is the earth, you no longer have any excuse to deny my existence. So they want people, they don't want people in a situation where they can't, where they can deny, where they can't deny the creator. So they have you, they have basically, they want non-God believing, scared people that think there's shortage of food. There's no food shortage. There's no water shortage. There's no energy shortage. This whole extracting oil from the earth is not the way, you know, there's free energy everywhere. They don't want us knowing any of that. Teachers are the ones that can memorize and regurgitate all of the nonsense the best. If you can memorize and regurgitate and believe the nonsense in the textbooks, you become the next teachers. Pilots are just following their GPS is flying the plane. They just land and take the plane off, and they don't question it. But the ones that do are waking up. There's thousands and thousands of pilots that are awake now, and they're waking up more and more. They don't want this awakening. They're doing everything they can to stop it. And I think a lot of what's going on in the world right now is to reset the memory of everybody. It happens every 100 years. They pull the same nonsense again every 100 years, and they're trying to do a great reset. Okay, people that do believe in God, that are fine, that are doing well. But if the majority of the world is lost in space, thinking that they're insignificant, not knowing their true power, then they're not exerting their true power. It's literally, you know, the movie with Keanu Reeves, The Matrix. He's trying to, like, something's wrong with the world. He can't figure it out. He's depressed. It's because his mind is in the Matrix. He doesn't know where he is. By the end of the movie, he's unplugged from the Matrix, metaphorically, and he's taken back his power, the power of his mind, and now his life is different. Belief is the enemy of knowing. We're taught the earth is a globe before we can talk. All of our schooling was about dinosaurs and asteroids. And, you know, as little kids, the globe, the first worksheet you brought home was about the sun goes around, the earth goes around the sun, and the moon goes around the earth. It's all about globe programming. They've put it into the foundation of our world. I am ripping that belief out from underneath you, and I'm putting you on a true foundation, the earth. Go outside and meditate and imagine all of those spinning, twirling, and whirling motions, right? And then shake your head off and imagine that you are centered on the basement of the universe, and you're not moving at all, and the heavens are turning about above you. Immediately, you feel your energy rise. You'll feel your soul be like, yes, hello. Your soul's been trying to talk to you. You're depressed, like Neo. The reason people are depressed is because they're lost. They don't know who they are. And their lives are falling apart because of their thoughts. They don't want us to know that our thoughts create our reality. They go like this. They go from Santiago all the way up here, across, and then all the way back down. Why do they go all the way up to the north, across the equator? And if you want to go to Western Australia, they go all the way up, all the way over to Europe and Dubai and down. And the reason is because here's the going to Western Australia, all the way up across Europe, Dubai, and Western Australia. It's a straight line. Okay. These are the paths that they take. They only work on a flat earth map. There's no reason why they wouldn't just cut around Antarctica, right? Antarctica on the globe is 13,000 miles around. An easy way to prove the earth is a globe is to get two ships, put them within sight of Antarctica. One goes this way and one goes this way. And then they should meet 7,000 miles later on the other side. But they can't do it. One, you're not allowed to go within a couple thousand miles, beyond 60 degrees south. And two, the last person that did it was Captain Cook, and it took him over 3.5 years. And he went over 60,000 miles, and he never even completed his journey. Okay. And that's because the earth is not a ball. Antarctica is not a continent at the bottom of a spinning ball. There's no pictures of Antarctica from space, because that's another thing that doesn't exist. You know, the whole thing with satellites and space, it's all nonsense, all of it. And once you wrap your mind around that, then you'll start seeing, and things do change. People say, what difference does the shape make? I still got to go to work tomorrow, right? All of that changes. Right? My whole world changed. I had my own company. I was making large six figures. All as well. I walked away from it all. Believe me, this is actually harder than my company working, for myself was. But if the world is in chaos right now, and you can see what's happening. The elite are trying to take over with communism, and if somehow we get our freedoms back, how long will we keep it if we're lost in space, spinning out of control? How long? Not long at all. Don't believe anything I say, even my name, right? Don't believe any of that. and show me curvature. Show me, show me somebody that crossed Antarctica. Show me a flight from Santiago to Australia over Antarctica. The center of the Earth is the North Pole. We believe there's a magnetic mountain there. There's a magnetic force. You put a compass down, the North Needle will point to it. And if you try to go west, you have to keep turning to keep that needle pointed to the center. So when you dead reckon west, you're going in a circle. You're going in a circle, and that's the same on a flat Earth and a globe Earth. South is every direction away from the center. So if you try to dead reckon west, right? I'm going to dead reckon west, and if I don't keep turning to the north, that compass turns, and now I'm heading south. South is every direction away from the center. And when you go south, you don't come back, okay? East and west are circles, okay? So I'll show you again. On the app, if I turn on the compass, correct. Now, some people believe that there's different. We're still trying to figure it out. This, by the way, this is the map that the United Nations uses, right? This is the map that's on Air Force One during the wars when Kennedy was on Air Force One. There's a picture. This map is on the wall. This map is used everywhere, but globe is just the flat Earth map wrapped around it. Okay, so it all depends on your reference frame. But if I leave Miami and I head east is a circle, and it brings me right around. I could dead reckon 90 degrees. I think I'm going straight, but I'm not. I'm just coming back. West brings me all the way around, all the way back to where I started. I can even go north. If I want to go to Japan, I can go north. And as soon as I pass the magnetic center, I'm now heading south, and I'm in Japan. I can also go west. So New York to Tokyo. So New York to Tokyo, you go. This is where they go. They go to Alaska, and then over to Tokyo. Basically, it's a straight line. You could also, if you want California, sometimes they'll go around this way. Sometimes they'll go up straight. But the reason that Alaska is such a major hub is because this is how you get from the Far East to the United States. You got to cut across here. Nobody's allowed to fly over the Arctic. Think about this. Words have meaning. If I'm standing here in the Arctic, right? And I turn, and the sun is, what is the sun doing? The sun is, so I'm here in the Arctic. The sun, what's the sun doing? It's arcing around me, right? It's arcing around me. When you move the light towards the outside towards the dome, it wraps around. It's moving outwards and inwards. It's called the analemma. So in the Arctic, the sun is arcing around us. It's making an arc around you. Okay, you got that. But if you're out here in the Antarctic, what's the sun doing? It's not arcing around you. It's antarcing away from you. Okay, Antarctica, Arctic, Antarctic. Right? That's what it's talking about. It's all about the sun. In the 1920s, everyone knew the Earth was flat. They were teaching flat Earth in the public schools in the United States all the way into the 1920s. All of these wars and the Depression, all of this stuff happened to change history. Right? I interviewed a woman named Ruth, 102 years old, in February of 2020, and she had such a great memory. I was talking about the World's Fairs, and I asked her what they taught her in elementary school. I'd never mentioned flat Earth, and she said they taught me the Earth is flat, right? But then they changed it years later, and she just believed it because she lived on a farm. There was no electricity. All sorts of stuff was happening. Electricity was just coming. There was an advanced civilization here called Tartaria, right? In the 1800s, there was giant ships in the sky, bigger than aircraft carriers, right? Cruising around the world. The world was a united place, and there was a cataclysm that happened, a mud flood of something happened, and when we came out of it, the people that came out on top decided to hide the rest from us. They're trying to keep their power. Everyone knew the Earth was flat, but until the Industrial Revolution, and so the elite changed it because they don't want people knowing what power they have. They don't want people knowing where they are. They don't want people knowing that perhaps beyond Antarctica is more land, other continents. Like that map I showed you from the New York Journal. What if in the outer space, in the extra terra, there was other people out here, other civilizations living out here? with their own sun and moon before the 1900s. It's all made up by the victors. The story of Eratosthenes. He's the guy 2,000 years ago that discovered the shot that the Earth is a globe and the size of the Earth. Most famous mathematician. There's not a single mention of him in any book by anyone else ever until the late 1900s. He was inserted into our history, and everyone believes it's a fact. But it's a made-up story, and even if it was real, it works on a flat Earth too. They don't want you to know that. Eratosthenes' calculations work perfectly in the flat Earth model. So one, he never did it. Two, his buddy 500 miles away had, what, did he have a fucking cell phone? Or did he have a string and cup, you know? Okay, how did he communicate with them? How did they figure? It's all a made up story just to make you believe you live in a ball. If you Google flat Earth, you're going to end up at the Flat Earth Society. None of us believe any of that nonsense that the government runs disinformation. We're just true Earth researchers. I created this app because when you Google flat Earth, you get all disinformation. If you said, hey, Dave, send me something on the fake moon landings, and I sent you something, the next video that would pop up would be an anti-fake moon landing. It would be like, oh, look, watch this. Google's going to try to deprogram you. So this app with all of the links on it will bring you to only good content. You could spend, someone said, okay, you know what? I'm going to spend 500 hours researching flat Earth. You're going to find 2 hours worth of good information if you made it through the 500 hours. The app will bring you to only good information, and then make up your own mind. Don't believe anything I say. Do it yourself. Like when I heard, okay, we can see too far, I looked up the curvature formula, I checked it out, and then I said, all right, and I bought $1,000 camera and tripod, and I went down to the beach. I said, I know that buoy is 11 miles away. If it was 10 miles away, there should be 66 feet of curvature. I could see the buoy, and I could see land. I could see water surface for another 20 miles beyond it, right? Where there would be hundreds of feet of curvature, right? Navy ships that can take a pencil thin laser beam and light up another ship 100 miles away. There should be 6,600 feet of water in between them, but they can see them. A submarine near the bottom can send sonar out. Whenever it hits something solid, it bounces back and they know how far it is, how big it is. Sonar underwater, climb over mountains, okay? It can see too far, period. And then there's so many proofs. I mean, a vacuum of space next to a high pressure atmosphere breaks every law of thermodynamics. If you had no air in the bottle and you opened it up, it would suck the air up and away. If you stuck the bottle underwater, just the tip of the bottle underwater and opened it, it would suck the water up and away. So that proves that low pressure can pull things up and away from gravity. How come the ultra no pressure of space doesn't suck the air up and away, right? And the only explanation is gravity and a pressure gradient. That's bullshit. I can take a straw with the weak vacuum of my lungs and mouth. I can pull water and air up and away from Earth effortlessly. But the space vacuum can't. It's nonsense. It's all cartoons to scare you and make you believe in nonsense. Use your common sense and don't trade it in for nonsense. Don't say, I'm not a scientist. I don't know. The scientists are the ones that memorize and regurgitate the nonsense the best. And by the way, there's great scientists. Chemistry, very cool science, right? You know, there is the people that make phones and computers. That's great science. Pseudoscience is NASA, is pseudoscience.